Welcome on into the Wraparound here with the hockey news. It is the best time of year to be a hockey fan and best time of year to talk hockey. Grateful to be here and to be filling in with Kelsey Surmacz and Michael Augello. I am Andrew McInnis. Guys, can't wait to talk about today's topics. Looking forward to hopefully some hot takes here. Kelsey, first time working together. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Andrew?
No complaints. My Canadians are still alive. I got the poster behind me. I've made it very clear any videos I do, I'm a diehard Habs guy, so we'll put that warning on the screen if you hear any Habs takes from me. Michael, you already know all about that from me, but how are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing fine until I heard that. Now I need some Alka-Seltzer.
You're used to it by now. We did the post-game show together and everything. But hey, guys, look, we already have one game underway with the conference finals, and the Eastern Conference Finals gets going here this evening. Before we jump into our topics, do want to mention for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. You can now get 12 issues delivered straight to you, packed with stories, stats, and a bonus gift issue to kick things off if you head over to thn.com and get in on the action. All right, let's jump right into it here. The Vegas Golden Knights took game one of the Western Conference Final, 4-2 win over the Colorado Avalanche, commanding 3-0 lead. The Avalanche, though, they fought back, but it was not enough. And, you know, a more than important empty net goal by Nick Dowd to kind of solidify that win for the Vegas Golden Knights. Before we get into all the details, Kelsey, your thoughts on that game one Western Conference Finals?
I mean, I think this was Vegas Golden Knights hockey that we saw throughout this game. Colorado wasn't really, able to generate how they have been throughout these playoffs. Obviously, Minnesota was a tougher series for them. I don't want to say it's been a cakewalk for them so far, but they've had no problems generating offense. And obviously, Scott Wedgwood with a little bit of an off game here too. So, I don't want to say it was surprising. The Vegas Golden Knights are capable of playing this way. And I think, honestly, they were underperforming for a lot of the regular season, and they're really starting to find their stride at the right time. So, like I said, just Vegas Golden Knights hockey, they were able to shut them down, and it was pretty impressive.
Michael, game one, Western Conference Finals, Colorado, big favorites in the series. What do you think about Vegas's first game?
Well, there's always this debate of the balance between rest and rust. And I thought Colorado was extremely rusty, being off for 8 days since they eliminated Minnesota. I'm not taking anything away from Vegas, but when you're getting goals from Dylan Coghlan, who hadn't scored in like 7,000 years, it's the writing is on the wall. Now, that being said, Colorado was without Cale Makar, and Cale Makar is one of the best players in the world. So I somehow think he'll be in for game two, and I somehow still expect Colorado to best Vegas in the series because Colorado is the better of the two teams.
I have to admit, I was expecting something from you about that great, back around, swing around pass from Mitch Marner, but I'm sure we'll get something from him out of you before the show ends today. Let's talk about Brett Howden, though. This is a guy that I know it's been a breakout playoff, but it already feels like his contract is going to be one of the best or worst, depending on how you look at it in the NHL, because he has been unbelievable for this team. I don't even know if you can call him a depth piece at this point for this Vegas team, but Howden buried his 9th goal of the postseason, second in the NHL, behind only his teammate, Pavel Dorofeyev. Of those goals, 3 have come shorthanded, which is tied for the most in a single postseason with 7 other players, including Wayne Gretzky. When you look at depth, we've talked so much about Colorado having 17 goal scorers, so many goal scorers throughout the playoffs, so many guys that can create. Let's talk about, Michael, the Vegas Golden Knights and the depth they displayed on Wednesday night.
Well, when you're getting goals from guys like Howden, who is basically the Western Alex Newhook in this playoffs, Nick Dowd, and some of the other depth players, that's a recipe for success. I mean, can you depend on that, to get you through the playoffs? I don't think you can, because I think you need the big dogs to hunt. And Dorofeyev has been fantastic in the playoffs. And, Mitch Marner, until he realizes it's the Western Conference Final and shuts it down, has been great so far in the playoffs. But, I don't know how much you can count on those players to produce regularly. You need Eichel. Mark Stone is out of the lineup right now, but you need your big players to score. And if they do, then you have a good chance. But again, Colorado was off 8 days and they looked rusty, and their goaltender looked rusty. So do I expect that to continue going forward in this series? No.
Well, anyone that's worked with me here at the Hockey News knows that I always kind of have a soft spot for the East Coasters, Eastern Canadian players, and Nathan McKinnon's one of them, of course. But Cale Makar, look, it was still a pretty good game for the Avalanche despite the result, but man, oh man, they missed that player. So you think back to when they won the Cup, the Conn Smythe didn't go to Nate. The Conn Smythe went to Cale Makar. So it'd be very, very important to get him back in there for game 2. And so, Kelsey, that takes us to our next topic here with Colorado adjustments to be made. I still can't believe that going into game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, we saw 2 goalie changes for a team that had lost 1 game so far. It doesn't really make much sense to me here, but Scott Wedgwood, 24 stops in game 1, 889 save percentage. Would you consider switching up the goalie again? And if not, would you look at any lineup changes or even line combination changes?
I think, honestly, it's probably pretty overreactionary to be making a goalie change in this instance, only because he's got them this far. He has a 908 save percentage throughout the playoffs. This isn't a guy who's been struggling immensely. He's also had a really good team in front of him for most of the playoffs, and having Cale Makar in front of him does help a lot. So, I wouldn't react to 1 game here. I think that Colorado is going to find more of their game in game 2. We'll see how that shakes out. But in general, yeah, I know goaltending changes, especially this late in the playoffs, especially when you really need momentum swings on your side, can help a team, even if, the guy's not necessarily deserving of that switch up. But I think in this case, if you go down 0-2 and you lose game 2, maybe that's the time to consider switching things up just to get some kind of spark going. But for now, after game 1, after 1 game, I just think it's probably a bit of an overreaction for them to make a swap and goal.
Michael, one Nathan McKinnon comment to the media afterwards was just execution. We didn't finish off plays. He didn't even think they were that poor. He just thought that they didn't execute on their actual plays they created. What could they have done to be better in that game? And would you make any changes within the lineup?
Well, I'll make a prediction for game 2. The starting goaltender for Colorado's last name ends with Wood. Because now I personally would make the switch to Blackwood, not because Wedgwood played badly, but when they went to Blackwood in the series against Minnesota, it really sparked them. And I think it's not on him. And when that, like with Buffalo, they kept going from Lyon to Luukkonen based on what happened in the previous game. I think, you do not want to go down 2-0 going back to Vegas. You need to at least split, because they're very capable of winning in Vegas. Obviously, getting Makar back in the lineup, if he's 100% or as close as he can get to it, is a big key. And you also have to factor in, how injured is he? Because Vegas being a veteran team, as soon as Makar steps on the ice, they're going to target him. They're going to go at him. They're going to run him because he's a key for them. And if they don't do that, they're abrogating their responsibilities in terms of trying to win. And I'm sure Tortorella is going to be beating that into their head that you got to go after Makar. But that's the big change. You can shift the lines a little bit. You can mix up the defensive pairings. It's getting Makar back, having him paired with Devin Taves, because they'll probably play 24, 25 minutes in game 2, and they'll need him to have a chance to win.
All right. Well, can't wait for game 2 of that series. Look forward to hearing what you guys think about this topic here. Bruce Cassidy and the Vegas Golden Knights. Feel like the Vegas Golden Knights have had such a tear since they've, been a franchise here in the league. But they're always making the headlines, guys. They can't keep their names out of the newspaper here. And, You know, Mike, we look at this in a press conference ahead of game one, Western Conference Finals. We're supposed to be focused on the game itself. Meanwhile, GM Kelly McCrimmon had to focus in on a former coach, Bruce Cassidy, still under contract despite being fired with 7 games remaining in the season, replaced by John Tortorella. The GM said, we've been consistent that our focus is currently on the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the teams have respected that. The Coaches Association released a statement pretty much saying, hey, look, it's our position that coaches who remain under contract but are no longer working for that club, they should not be prevented from pursuing other opportunities. Would love your thoughts here on this.
Well, I mean, the Coaches Association can say anything that they want. They're really like a dog without teeth. They don't really have any power in this situation. They're going to advocate for a coach getting a job if he doesn't have a job, but Bruce Cassidy is being paid. So, you know, he signed a contract. I think he has 3 years left in his deal. He's being paid. And if I'm the Vegas Golden Knights, even though they're the Oakland Raiders or the New England Patriots of the NHL, where they don't care, you know, what the perception is, they just go about their business the way they go about their business. They don't want Bruce Cassidy going to one of their rivals, the team that has eliminated them a couple times in the playoffs. You know, I don't think they want him going to the Los Angeles Kings. I think would they mind if he went to Toronto? Probably not, but I don't think he's really in the mix in Toronto. They don't want him going to a rival, and I think they're willing to pay $3.5 million a year to keep him from going to that rival. So unless. And apparently it's not an option for Bruce Cassidy to terminate his contract or do anything. He's under contract. He signed on the dotted line. That's a legally binding agreement. Sorry, Bruce. Go and enjoy the $3.5 million the next 3 years. If you don't want it, I'll take it. Thank you.
Well, Kelsey, getting paid not to work sounds pretty good to me. But a lot of people say that in the coaching business, the longer you're out of the game, the worse it gets, I guess, for you, or you don't know who you're going to come back and coach. What are your thoughts on the situation?
You know, I gotta agree with Chris Pronger here saying that this is all a bunch of BS. I have to kind of part ways with Michael a little bit here because, look, I get it. This is a legally, binding contract. As Mike said, he signed the dotted line. I do understand that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I look back to the situation last summer with the Pittsburgh Penguins and Mike Sullivan. He had signed an extension just prior to getting fired, and he ends up on talking to the Rangers. He gets the coaching job a couple weeks later. I mean, I think this is a situation where why not, as Pronger said, sign off on a waiver saying you can get an interview. I understand the business side of things. And not wanting him to go to a rival, being bound to that contract, signing the dotted line. But at the end of the day, these guys want NHL jobs as anybody else does. And there's a reason that these guys are coveted more than any others. So I just feel like from, a professional standpoint, this is a bad look. This is unfair to Cassidy. And I think everybody's kind of picking up on that. This isn't something that teams typically exercise in these kinds of situations. It just seems pretty spiteful on the part of Vegas. And to me, it's just, between that and the media availability thing, it's just making them look worse and worse as an organization. So in terms of saving some PR, I just think this is a bad look for them. And they should, just kind of cater to what a lot of hockey folks are expressing on this matter. So that's my take, though.
And Andrew, I don't think they care about the negative PR. I think they care about, whether Edmonton will beat them the next couple of years. They know how good a coach Bruce Cassidy is. So I think in the end, that's what they care about. So if they can deny the Edmonton Oilers a coach that will make them better, I mean, I don't know. I think they need a goaltender. I'm just going out on a limb there. But, if they don't have somebody who can, get them on track, I mean, Vegas will be very happy if they choose somebody else like Craig Berube as a head coach.
Look, two great points. And I think that there's the number one about denying a rival of a coach. The number two of, getting paid not to work. We joke around about that, but hey, look, getting paid to not go somewhere else, like they're preventing him from going on someone else's books is just like, I don't even know how to think about that. And I get that aspect of it. But like Kelsey was saying, I mean, look, let the guy coach. And I'm going to say this because I had a long list of things to mention, and I completely even forgot about what you brought up there, Kelsey, about the media thing, which is, of course, the most recent thing. I believe reputation matters. And Michael, you said about the New England Patriots and certain teams, and you could talk baseball, we could talk basketball, we could talk football, whatever. Reputation matters. And there's going to be a time and place where this Vegas Golden Knights team isn't the great team they've been since they became a part of the league. It might not be soon. There's going to be a time where that happens. And there's going to be a time where there's going to be 31 other teams that do not feel sorry for them. And that's the way I look at it, because sometimes there might be a deal. You know what? You need a D-man. You need a young goalie. You need this. No. And you know, whether it's the John Tortorella situation, whether it's how they treated Marc-Andre Fleury on the way out, whether it's Jonathan Marchessault, the heart and soul of that team at one point, hey, see you later. We're not paying you. You know, Alex Tuch, big part of that team. No, we'll ship you off. We'll get a player, win a cup with him. How are you, Jack Eichel? But the list goes on. And we can talk about media stuff that's happened with this team. And I'm leaving a few things out as well. Reputation matters. So, you know, that'd be my little mini rant for you guys. I think that reputation does matter. So, you know, if John Tortorella wants a media job again as well when he's done, maybe he should probably start answering the media's questions. Don't you guys find it kind of ironic? The guy that was on the TNT panel wouldn't talk to the media after a game was over. Seems kind of funny to me that a guy that was getting paid by a broadcast company didn't want to talk to the broadcasters as a coach. Is there some irony there?
No, I think what it was that he was under orders, and I have no 100% proof of this. I think he was under orders from the organization. They didn't want to talk about Cassidy. They didn't want to talk about, you know, there were some fans in Anaheim that were wearing T-shirts that were against a certain player on the roster. They didn't want to talk about the one-game suspension to Braden McNabb. They didn't wear the microphone that the broadcast network wanted them to wear. So at the very beginning, even before the end of the game, even before the curfew and the excuse that they needed to leave early, they were doing stuff that didn't smell right. And that's why I think this wasn't torts. This was from on high.
From one coach to another, let's talk about Lindy Ruff, because, you know, what a season turnaround it was for the Buffalo Sabres. Let's go to Mike in Buffalo. Michael Augello, what do you think about this topic here? Because we've got an extension. Didn't take very long for Coach Lindy to get extended and to get probably what he deserved based on what he was able to do with the Buffalo Sabres this season.
Yeah, this was a worst kept secret. I mean, they had the remarkable success after starting off and being the worst team in the Eastern Conference through like the early December, and then they were the best team in the NHL. Things were turned around. He seemed to really enjoy this young team and the direction that they were going. He had a 2-year contract which was the same length as his contract with the New Jersey Devils and he had been fired. And then he just basically took the same length with the Sabres, hoping to get them back in the playoffs. And he accomplished that. So he lives in the Buffalo area. The organization, I think, was going to kick him up into a senior advisor role if he didn't want to continue, but he wants to continue. And I think it was a no-brainer, as Jarmo Kekalainen said.
Kelsey?
Totally agree. I mean, you can't really argue with a guy who's a Jack Adams finalist, probably going to be the winner this season. We'll see. But, and as far as them being able to sustain this and make the playoffs, Buffalo is an up-and-coming team. They have a core of young talent that's, getting into their mid or upper 20s, and they have these young guys pushing too, like Helenius and, a couple of these other guys. So I think they'll be okay. I think this is the right decision. This is a no-brainer. Lindy Ruff is beloved by the fans there. He's a really well-respected coach within the organization and around hockey. So, this was a no-brainer for me, and I think they'll be able to sustain this moving forward too.
I think just an extension is almost an insult. He needs a key to the city. 14-year playoff drought? Come on, Mike. This guy needs to get everything. He should get an 8-year deal with this team for what he was able to do. What a turnaround, though, and hats off to the Buffalo Sabres. A very bright future for this team, all jokes aside. Kelsey, let's move on to another coach. New Jersey Devils made it very clear, as Sportsnet Elliot Friedman reported, that he'll be back with the New Jersey Devils. The Devils won 42 games in each of Keefe's 2 seasons in charge, had 4 more regulation loss last season to miss the Eastern Conference and to miss the playoffs. What do you think about his tenure as a head coach in New Jersey and how the Devils have performed under him?
I mean, it's tough to assess his tenure there and just this team in general over the last couple of years, because they've just been so injury depleted that's almost not fair. And, I think in terms of, the statement that he's going to be remaining there, I think this is a situation they can, give him a little bit more runway, give him through at least part of this season to see if they can really turn the ship around here. Because, again, they still have enough on that roster. They're going to be still building out on that roster too, that I think they'll be able to be in the playoff conversation moving forward. I think they're still in a good enough spot to return to legitimate contention too. But they need to stay healthy, and they need to just stay on track that way, and just keep building out in any way they can around this core of players that they have. That said, some other top line players are getting older, so that's something to keep an eye on. But at the end of the day, I think this was basically a low risk thing, keeping him around. There's no hurt in just seeing how things start to play out this season. But if they, start to head the wrong direction again and things aren't looking good, I wouldn't be surprised to see a change mid-season or even at the end of next season.
Michael, the injury is obviously a huge part of it. Do you think that almost makes it acceptable for Keefe a little bit? And we don't like to use the word excuse, but does that help his case a little bit for the results they've had?
I think that if Sheldon Keefe had been fired, it would have been the Eastern version of an unjust firing, like Chris Knobloch in Edmonton. Chris Knobloch was fired because his GM is incompetent. And I think Tom Fitzgerald, in not being able to pull off the Quinn Hughes deal and allowing Bill Guerin to do it, was the Eastern version of incompetence there. He lost his job because of it. So, a new GM usually has, doesn't want to use that bullet in the chamber to fire the coach right away. Toronto did it with Berube, but I think that was a different situation here. I think Keefe is a good coach. If they could ever stay healthy, they could be a playoff team. We'll see if that happens.
Taking a look now at the Washington Capitals. Timothy Liljegren has signed with the Capitals. Defenseman here extended to a 2-year, $6.5 million contract extension. Will pay him an annual average of $3.25 million. Recording 1 goal and 10 assists for 11 points, averaging 19 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time in 47 games with the Capitals and the San Jose Sharks in 2025-26. He was acquired by Washington in trade last March for a 2026 4th-round pick. After parting ways with John Carlson here, guys, we're looking at a pretty solid defensive core, but is it enough for this Washington Capitals team? Kelsey, your thoughts on this extension and the blue line core of the Caps?
I quite like this core for the Capitals, and I do think that they can, get at least a handful of a number of good years out of this core. Chychrun had a great year last season, despite the Caps missing. He's been a really great fit in Washington. Obviously, Faravari has been doing, business as usual over there. They have I think they're all kind of in the right age range too. They're all mid to late 20s, still performing at a pretty high level. And I think this extension, they took a chance on a guy who, didn't really have a spot, didn't really have a place in Toronto anymore. It's worked out for them. He did the same thing with San Jose. So it's one of those things. I think that the Caps missing this year, they were a pretty good 5-on-5 team for most of the season. Things just didn't click, and things weren't, for whatever reason, just didn't come together this season. I do think the great chase last year might have had a little bit of an impact on just how good they were last season in comparison to this season. But as far as this D-core, I don't think that's the main concern for them. I think they need to build more up front, especially, with the expectation that Alex Ovechkin could retire at any point. We don't know what's happening there. So I think their D-core is in pretty good shape to sustain them. I think the forward front is where they really need to consider trying to fill out the roster a little bit more and get more high-end talent.
Michael, do they have what it takes on the blue line? What do you think?
I think their defense is probably middle of the pack at best. I know Chychrun had a really good year. I mean, one of the factors here is, I mean, Cole Hudson likely is going to step into the John Carlson spot. You know, he showed some dynamic offensive ability in his small window at the end of the season. But I think a factor in this signing was the free agent class is terrible. I mean, across the board, it's terrible. B, you paid a right-handed defenseman tax because Liljegren is a right shot D. And, you know, his year last year was not particularly great, but he fit in well. And you know, he's a mobile defenseman. And of that list that you mentioned, Rasmus Sandin tore his ACL late in the regular season, I think against Pittsburgh, and is probably not going to be back until New Year's. So they needed another body on the blue line, and Liljegren is a NHL defenseman. I think at best he's, you know, a 4, 5, or 6, but right now they need that, so they paid the price.
Look forward to seeing what Cole Hudson can do, but big shoes to fill, as you mentioned, but looked pretty good so far. And the Capitals overall are a team that I have a lot of question marks going into next season. Could be great, could be a big decline. We'll have to find out. Last topic here, offer sheet compensation. NHL's 2026 compensation list for restricted free agents this summer was revealed. Teams having to pay as much as 4 first-round picks for salaries nearing $12 million. No players signed to offer sheets last offseason, but we'll all remember the St. Louis Blues signing both Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway to offer sheets from the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm sure Oilers fans don't want to hear about that. Guys, how are we feeling about the UFA class heading into this summer? Michael?
Well, I look at the free agency. I mean, UFAs, I think this is a terrible class. Alex Tuck is going to probably get $11 million in free agency. So I think the fact that the cap is going up to $104 million is going to make offer sheets a very popular option for a number of teams.
Kelsey, do you think people are going to, you know, use the Edmonton Oilers example as a learning lesson and an opportunity to say, hey, look, we don't want this to happen to me? We didn't see any last summer. What do you think about this summer?
I think it's going to be an interesting situation to navigate because, as Michael said, the cap went up, but that also means that teams have more space to be able to match offer sheets. So I think this is going to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out, because for cap strap teams, absolutely. I mean, this is the time to target those teams because there are a lot of teams that have, you know, extra cap this summer. And if you're looking at a team like the Dallas Stars, even the Buffalo Sabres, some of these teams that are up against the cap or close to it, that might be an opportunity for a team. I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins. For a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins, you know, slide in and offer sheets some of those cap strap teams for players. I'm looking at Maverick Bourque from Dallas. We're thinking about Nick Robertson from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mentioned earlier before we jumped on here, Michael Kesselring. Penguins need a couple defensemen to really, you know, anchor down their blue line. And Pittsburgh's just one example. There's a lot of teams in this situation that have to spend to get to the floor. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see that dichotomy and just how it works out with teams that have the cap to spend on offer sheets and also teams that have the cap to, you know, work around the offer sheets and maybe, you know, figure out situations where they're able to match the, you know, the offer sheet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because I think these cap strap teams should be a little bit nervous about, you know, some of these teams with a high volume of cap coming at them and trying to take advantage like the St. Louis Blues did a couple years ago.
We all love drama, right? It makes it fun. I think it's going to be a great summer of hockey. And as Bill Guerin said, nobody's safe. Not one player. And he said, hey, even Wayne Gretzky changed teams. This has been the Wraparound. Thanks so much for watching. And thank you to you two for letting me fill in here and rant and yap and try and get my thoughts in as well. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.